There is a lot of mixed information data about how many drones was there. So there were some reports showing 32 drones were detected attacking Moscow, but the official reports from Moscow says 8 drones, out of which 5 were, as they say, were taken down by the air defense system, and 3 were silenced by the audio systems, and then they crashed in a civilian residential, basically houses. So that's what we know. Again, it's very interesting information about, how the 3 drones that were silenced, but that actually cruised and crashed into residential houses with some people having them in one apartment, and they didn't even notice that until they woke up. There were 2 students in an apartment, and they woke up in the morning and they saw this, drone there. They did not explode. As well, which is interesting. And there's discussion as well around like why they didn't explode. But yeah, we can talk about that later. Yeah.
Okay, so Kyiv has denied responsibility for these attacks. Is it likely the drones came from Ukraine?
So there were official statements, right, made by Ukrainian officials straight after this attack. They said they were not directly involved. That's what they're saying, like I'm quoting. So they say no. And actually, as we see that where the drones were fired from as well, there is a mixed, discussions around where they were firing from. There are reports that they were fired from potentially from some regions, border regions of Ukraine, but most versions are saying that drones were fired like this. That was operated from neighborhoods of Moscow, right? So by Russian residents, right? Russian citizens. So there are no official, statements around that. But from my opinion as well, it looks like drones were quite big, some of them, the size of them. So how would air, defense system in Russia would not detect them flying so far away from Ukraine? So it really looks like the drones were operated and were sent from Moscow neighborhoods. By Russian nationals.
Is that the same theory that was behind the drone attacks on Kyiv, which happened earlier this month?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because again, there's no official statements around who was behind those attacks on the Kremlin. Again, some agencies say that, there's no direct link to Ukraine.
Okay, so what's Russia's strategy if Russia was indeed behind these drone attacks on itself? What are they hoping to achieve through them? They're perhaps using them as a smoke screen to launch more attacks on Ukraine.
We don't know, right? It can be some Russian citizens, let's say, that support, Ukraine. We don't know, what was motivation behind it, but it looks like this attack was not targeted. It looks because they didn't detonate, right? They didn't explode these drones, which were, which landed in the residential houses. I think if the attack, like the goal of the attack was to make a damage, kill, Russian residents, I think the drone would explode. There are versions that, operators of the drones, they let's say they saw, because they see where the drone landed, right? They saw that it landed in a residential area, so they did not activate it, right? Or potentially Russian audio system silenced, right? Or deactivated the mode from using the attack, right? So we don't know exactly what that is, but it looks like this attack was not targeted at anything specifically. It was like a test of the drone systems, a test maybe of Russian air defense systems, and so on. But again, we don't know exactly. That's just some hypothesis.
Meanwhile, Kyiv is under continual bombardment by Russian drones and missiles. How's the city coping?
Yes, I have my family in Kyiv, and I have a lot of friends in Kyiv as well. So I should say, it's been a very hard couple of weeks. There was the most massive attacks happening on Kyiv, specifically on other big towns like Kharkiv and Kherson in the last week. Like, it's the biggest one since the start. So yeah, it creates pressure, but I think people are so strong. And, I talk to my friends regularly. I said, "Oh, how are you coping with that?" They said, yes, it creates some interruption at night when you hear the sirens at 2 a.m. when you are entering the deep sleep, right, mode. But then, you wake up, like you try to find some shelter, but then, you go back to work. So, I mean, within 1 hour after the attack, especially the one that happened, I think 2 days ago, daytime, people were back to their normal operations, like their everyday life straight after 1 hour after the attack.